Good morning and welcome each and every one of you to celebrate with us. This is Cursillo Mass. There are so many Cursillistas here gathered, and we are celebrating this Mass, and we are offering this Mass for all the Cursillistas and all the people who are not able to join us this year physically. In spirit, you are with us and we are with you, and maybe celebrate this Eucharistic celebration for all your personal intentions, especially all those who are sick. And today we begin this Cursillo Mass with the drumming. We are blessed to have our drummers here, Eugene and Mervin. Both of us are here, and let us begin today's celebration.
Welcome again, everyone who's joining us at our virtual pilgrimage here at Lac Sainte Anne. Jesus, in the Gospel of Matthew, makes a lot of the ground and of weeds and wheat, of sheep and goats. Jesus was a very close observer of creation and the relationships of those who live on God's creation. And today, in the parable of the wheat and the weeds, very interesting, in the Middle East, they have this, it's a weed, but it looks like wheat, and it's called zizania. And zizania grows up along with the wheat, and when it gets more mature, the heads, the seeds turn black. And it's actually poisonous for sheep, and so it's a serious thing to sort out of your crop. But in the beginning, it looks like the good stuff. And this summer, we have experienced many sorrows mixed in with some of the good things of summertime. In this summer of sorrows, we have been reminded of how many children lost their lives while attending the residential schools. And we also have learned how those people were buried without markers that would last, so that they would not be remembered. And very strangely, the Catholic Church, which had care of many of these schools, which has been known for having one of the best record-keeping systems for people's births and baptisms and sacraments, that we were not able to provide records, sometimes even notifications to those families who lost children at the schools. And so this summer, we have been living this sorrow one week after another, as more reports come to the media and people in Indigenous communities have their hearts burdened again. And what I've noticed personally, I've come to terms a long time ago with how to relate to this whole situation in our history as a country and as a church and for Indigenous peoples. When we regard the residential school system as a complete mistake, an evil system that never, ever should have existed, and that the Christian churches never, ever should have been involved in them. Because what the residential schools did was to divide what God had joined together in the integrity of the human family. The integrity of every human family, we can say, has God as its source. And so the legislation, the making of law to separate what God had joined together in the human family, sowed weeds and trauma and distress and death and confusion to peoples of Indigenous heritage who attended them and even their ancestors and their descendants. And sometimes when I talk about this, people will challenge me. They'll say, "Father Mark, that's a little strong, isn't it, saying that was an evil system?" And I say, well, at the very beginning, it was. And people will say, well, wait a minute, some people got a good education, but some people got a terrible education. Some people say that residential school days were some of the best days of their youth. Other people say that those days were the worst days of their youth. And so what you see, what sin does is it divides people. It's a good thing that some people had good experiences at the schools, but those schools never should have existed in the way they did. And so we see the wheat and the zizania. They kind of look the same, but after a long time, and if you're a sheep and you eat it, causes poison. But the most powerful part of this whole parable for us today is about the burning of the weeds. Now, the landowner tells his servants, no, don't go out there and try to pull up the weeds. You'll trample the wheat and you'll make a big mess. You have to wait till the right time. At harvest. And then we cut down everything, and then when everything's being harvested, you put the good on one side and the weeds, we burn them in the furnace. So when it comes to our own personal lives, we all know that we've got plenty of weeds within us, and we all know that we have some good stuff growing in us too. So how do we separate this stuff before we're harvested, before the end of our life? One of the ways we can do that, and I'm going to set this in the context of the division of opinions that some people have about the residential schools and our colonial history. The way I see it, for deeper reconciliation to occur at this time in our country, the people from my tribe who are the settlers, the immigrants, the new arrivals to Canada, we need to feel the pain that we and our ancestors who came to this country often were given land, 160 acres, or given other opportunities. And most people who have come to this country from elsewhere have prospered. When I feel my feelings about my own family members who came to Canada and got homesteads in the St. Walburg area, and the Indigenous people of that area, the Thunderchild Band, they had to go to a reserve, and later they were moved to another reserve because their land was pretty good, and the settlers thought that they weren't making good use of it. When I feel that, it burns. There's a burning. It feels embarrassing. I feel a little ashamed. And you know how it is sometimes when you're embarrassed, you blush? That's just a little topical sign of inflammation. Just a little burning on your cheeks. But if I'm willing to feel the burning that my family members were given land to come here and they've prospered, if I feel that, the burning, it's a little humiliating. But if I'm willing to feel that long enough, the sting gradually goes away, and you're left not so much humiliated, but humbled. You're humbled by the balance that went in your favor and not in someone else's favor. But when you're truly humbled, then you're able to respond to people, particularly people who have been dispossessed historically, with a new heart, with an open heart. And you're much more willing to change structures in your life and within your community and even within your society that favor these sharp divisions between people. And so that's how we can lean into the fire of our own humanity and be purified of the weeds that we have inherited. For the folks of the other tribe, the tribes of the peoples for whom Canada was their home, this land. And when they get in touch with the ways that they've been dispossessed and marginalized, and especially when we think of the very traumatic conditions of residential schools in the early days, children dying at school and being buried, sometimes their parents not being notified. When you get in touch with that, there's going to be fire. It burns. Anger, humiliation, indignation. And if you're able to feel that fire without lighting a fire or without trying to suppress that burning, eventually those flames will go down and you'll be left actually feeling a little hurt and a little sad. And it's in the ashes of hurt and sadness that a deeper healing can come. And when all of us, people who are arrivals to this country, settlers, and the original inhabitants of this country, when we can feel the fires within us and let them burn us clean, then we can recreate relationships. We can abandon old policies and laws and cultural attitudes that do not show each other respect. We can even change boundaries on maps and other ways to create spaces where everyone in this country can flourish and reach their true yield as God's beloved daughters and sons. And for some of us, that yield will be 30, others 40, others 60, and for some, 100-fold. And so, dear friends, in this sorrowful summer, this summer where we have taken orange to be a reminder of times past when peoples did not have the respect they were due, we pray that every day we'll be able to gently accept the burnings within ourselves that will lead us to genuine human and Christian liberation.